Hello and welcome to part three of a six-part series on the fundamentals of nutrition, where I sit here with my hot water bottle and talk to you about what I think you need to know in terms of nutrition and hopefully build up your confidence around choosing foods and just help make the understanding of nutrition a bit easier. I know there's a lot of information out there which I am adding to, but it can be quite confusing, so that's what we're doing. And today we're talking about protein. So you may have heard the word protein flying around and how it's good for muscles, which is true, but there's a lot more to it. So hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a bit more of an appreciation for protein and about what it can do. So what we're going to do is going to go over where protein comes from. Going to go to a little light bit of biochemistry just because you need to understand it to be able to understand the rest, and then what protein is used for in our bodies. And I think you'll be quite surprised by some of this, so yeah, I'm excited. And then how much we need on average, how much we need if we have got specific like muscle goals or something like that, and I will go through how to calculate this easily, and so you can individually work out how much you need and then show you how to do that, how to like get that in practically through food. So yeah, also I asked a lot of you questions. I asked my Instagram followers to ask me questions about what they wanted to know about protein, and these are really good. Like the questions are great, so I'm very excited to talk about those, and I'll probably answer quite a few of them just throughout anyway, but yeah, if you asked a question, then hang around for the end and I'll do it then. So just so we're all on the same page about what protein is and where it comes from in food, and just so when I say protein in terms of food, you know what to think about. So I'm going to put up two columns somewhere, and I'll do plant proteins and animal product proteins, and these are foods that have got high protein pretty much. And yeah, so protein is a macronutrient, and it is different to the other two macronutrients, carbohydrates and fats, because it doesn't really supply us with energy. Fats and carbohydrates supply us with a really great source of energy. Protein, not so much. We maybe like 5%, the rest of our energy comes from protein, but we only tap into our protein sources for energy when we are in starvation mode and we have got very low carbohydrate sources, when we are in ketosis, when we have very low carbohydrate source. And if you want to learn more about that, then my last video explains that. And also when we are running doesn't have to be running, but any in long distance endurance sport, when again carbohydrate levels are very low and we need sort of a little bit extra glucose. That's when we use protein as energy, but not really generally. And protein, so now we're going a little bit into the biochemistry of it, just a little bit, it's not hard. So protein comes in lots of different structures and formations, and I'm going to use a charger to demonstrate this, but basically there are lots of different structures. So structure A, structure B, like lots of different, but they all have one thing in common, where if you unwound them and lengthened them out, you would find they were all made up of a chain of amino acids. So imagine this has got lots of little units and they're all bound together, and they're called amino acids. And there are 22 amino acids, and they're all different. So they could differentiate by the fact that maybe one's bigger than the other, or one's smaller, or a different shape, or one might love water, one might hate water, and then they also might hate each other or love each other. So you can see that the sequence of amino acids that form the protein will dictate the structure. Okay, so sequence of amino acids, and because there are 22, there's like heaps of different sequences you can have, will dictate the structure of the protein, and that in turn dictates the function of the protein. So again, using my protein here, so this is the structure of the protein, right? Looks like this, and then it wants to react with this molecule over here, comes along, fits perfectly, beautiful, voila, like reaction happens. Say the protein looks like this, and this is the substrate, the molecule it wants to react with, comes along, doesn't really fit very well, But if it was like this, then it would fit lovely. But our previous one, which had a structure like this, wouldn't fit in that. So the sequence of amino acid dictates the folds and the structure, which therefore dictates the function and its ability to react with something else and carry out its function in the body. Primo, got it? And so, like I said, 22 different amino acids, lots of different sequences possible, lots of different structures. Those 22 amino acids, 9 of them we consider and label essential. So 9 essential amino acids. The other 13, they're useful, we love them, important, very important, of course. But the difference is we can make those 13 ourselves in our body, whereas those 9 essential ones we can't make. So we have to get them from our diet. And if we don't, then we won't be able to make those specific sequences, which will result in a wrong formation, which result in a poor function or a function that can't happen, you know, from the protein. And yes, those 9 essential amino acids we have to get from dietary sources. So cue those columns again. These are our dietary sources of protein and amino acids. And when we consume these protein sources, we have the ability to break them down back into the little units of little amino acids. And we do that via enzymes. And if you remember from my last video, there are enzymes that chop up a carbohydrate chain into sugar molecules. Just the same situation, different enzyme though, comes along, chops the protein up into its enzymes. And this enzyme is specific, so the protein enzyme can chop up the protein molecules, but it can't chop up the carbohydrate molecules into sugar, and vice versa. Carbohydrate enzyme can't chop up protein. So a little bit back to those 9 essential amino acids. Meat generally has all 9 essential amino acids, and it kind of makes sense because meat is pretty much muscle. There's some fat and connective tissue in there, of course, but mostly muscle. Plants don't have muscles, so they don't tend to have all 9 essential amino acids. Like some of them do. There are like quinoa, chia seeds, hemp seeds, tofu, like soy does have all 9 essential amino acids, which is great, but generally they don't. So imagine X plant has 6 of the essential amino acids, whereas another one has 4, the 3 that this guy's missing, but also is missing another 5, right? So you can see that it's important if you do not consume animal products to consume a range of plant proteins so that you make sure you have a complete set. And that's kind of where the like, are you a veggie? Where do you get your protein from? Like that's where that comes from, because plants don't tend to have those 9 essential amino acids, whereas meat does. And also plant proteins are a little bit harder to digest, so we may not digest all of them. Therefore, vegetarians, vegans will need a little bit more protein just to make sure you're getting an adequate amount. And like I said, it's not like plants don't have protein. Like this guy's vegetarian and he's jacked, so it's fine to get your protein from plant sources. Just got to be a little bit careful about variety and quality and getting enough of it. So now I'll talk about some of the functions of protein in our body that aren't related to muscular health. And this is really important because I think when people think of protein, they think of muscles, which is completely correct, but also there are hundreds and like thousands of different functions in the body that are all due to proteins. So I'm going to give 3 examples, which I think are pretty cool. They're all quite different. So yeah, you'll learn something here. So the first one is vision. There's a protein called opsin, which has a specific function where it receives protons. Okay, you know what? Don't worry about that. It receives protons and then it sends a signal all the way down to the optic nerve in the brain, and the brain interprets that as vision, right? And that's all because a protein has a specific sequence of amino acids which result in a specific structure and fold and formation, which results in a specific function of being able to receive a photon and then pass that message on, which is wild. So second example is enzymes. All enzymes are proteins. And like I said earlier, we have an enzyme to chop up proteins, we have an enzyme to chop up carbohydrates, we have thousands of enzymes all doing different things in our body, all helping just us live and do stuff. So there's an example that I want to just touch on briefly because it's a cool example of how when a mistake happens in that amino acid sequence and it results in the wrong formation and then the function cannot be carried out, and in an enzyme's case. So this disease is called maple syrup urine disease, which is basically when we consume protein-rich foods and then we have an enzyme that chops up our protein and creates amino acids and things, though some amino acids, we need to process them and we can't have them build up because that will be toxic. And there is an enzyme that deals with those amino acids that need to be processed that are left over. In maple syrup urine disease, the enzyme that is involved with processing those excess amino acids has a wrong amino acid sequence, resulting in wrong formation, resulting in its function not being able to carry out, and we have an excess build-up of those amino acids, and which results in a toxic environment and sweet-smelling urine. So that's just an example of how important that amino acid sequence is in relation to the protein structure and therefore function. The third example of how proteins happen in the natural world that aren't related to muscles is called ricin. And ricin is actually found in castor seeds, but can be used as a biological weapon because it is not very good for our bodies. And basically what happens is that the ricin stops the formation of proteins in our cells, which by now you should know that proteins are very important, and you die pretty much. And ricin, there was a series of assassinations in London, and what the assassin did was put the ricin in like a little pellet and he put it in an umbrella and then used the umbrella to kill someone. And yeah, pretty dramatic, but ricin is a protein, and that is an example of a protein that is not to do with muscles. So a major change in topic, but now I'm going to be talking about how much protein we need. So as always with nutrition, it completely depends on you and your goals, all of you pretty much, but I'm going to show you a really easy way of figuring out ballpark of where you should, or how much protein you should be eating, and then I'm going to show you how to do that in terms of food. So the recommended daily intake of protein, just for somebody who wants to be healthy and functional, is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So it's a tiny bit of maths, but we'll go through it so much you'll be dreamy about this. So I'm going to use myself as an example. So 0.8 times 60, so I'm 60 kgs, depending on whether I've gone to the toilet in the morning, and that equals 48 grams. So if I just wanted to be healthy and functional, and let's pretend that I'm not like an absolute slave to the gym, which I am, but if I just wanted to just be healthy and everything went fine, I would need to eat 48 grams of protein a day. That's really easy. It's not that much at all. That's like, how much is that? That's like a 1.5 chicken breasts or block of tofu. Yeah, something like that. It's not that much. And another way of looking at some recommendations is looking at a percentage of your calorie intake. So some recommendations just to be healthy is 10 to 35% of your daily calorie intake. And this isn't how much I eat, and this is just for the sake of my maths, but say you're eating 2,000 calories a day and your goal is just to stay healthy and functional, then eating a range of 10 to 35% of that 2,000, which is 200 to 700 calories worth of protein, then that's sweet, that's good. And using the equation I used first, so the 0.8 times kg body weight thing, that would be, I think it's like around 190 calories. So that's on the lower end of that second recommendation I said. That's about 10% of calories. And it also is, age is relevant. So as we get older, we need more protein, and that's more towards the 1.2 grams per kg of body weight. So let's say I was trying to gain muscle and I had an appropriate training regime, and if I wanted to gain muscle, I wanted to improve my endurance training and things like that, then what would I need to do in terms of my protein intake? Again, it's a little bit ambiguous, and there's quite a few studies saying different things, and the range that is suggested is quite big. It's between 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight, all the way up to 2.2. And so I'll just put up on the side, using myself as an example, what that would mean in terms of grams. And I don't really mind the fact that, like, personally, I don't really mind the fact that there's a bit of a range, because it means that we don't necessarily have to put so much pressure on ourselves to meet those high, or meet a specific protein intake for the day. Especially when you're looking at some of these really higher levels, then it's doable, but it's tricky, and you might be putting some like stress on yourself just for getting there, or you might be replacing other foods that have equally as good a good role in your sports performance or whatever you're trying to do, and that can be harmful to your progress as well. And a really good question I got asked on my Instagram was, so you need protein for muscle growth, like what else? What else you need to get optimal muscle growth or hypertrophy? And so I'm not a PT, so I won't talk about this too much, but appropriate training regime, so that usually entails resistance and weight training, obviously, and then but more lifestyle factors. You need good sleep so you can get recovery. You need to stay hydrated. You need lots of fruit and veg to support not only the micronutrients to help your vitality, but to help support your digestion and your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is very important in regulating hormones such as the growth hormone. And yeah, carbohydrates and fats to keep your energy source up. And I won't really go into supplements right now. I probably would need a whole video on that, and I want to do proper research before I start putting things out on the internet. But yeah, just making sure all those things are balanced. If you are slaving away at the gym and you've got an excellent training regime, but your lifestyle is not supportive of healthy, balanced, but in favor of muscle growth and things like that, then you may see not such good progress. Yeah, and then so another point, which leads me carry on. So having frequent meals, so keeping your energy levels up, but also frequent protein sources throughout your day. So not having it all in the morning or not having it all in the afternoon, because your body needs that continuous supply. So it has a threshold of how much protein it can manage at once. So yeah, getting those little bursts in is really good. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to real life a little bit and sort of bring it back into the food context. So I'm going to go through breakfast and then lunch and dinner ideas, or what foods to include in those sorts of meal to make sure you are getting a protein source in. It is up to you and maybe your health professional to decide how much you are getting for what specific goal, but these are just protein sources that would be easy to implement into these meals. So breakfast, I'm going to be kind of reading, so if you see me looking away from you, it's not because I don't like you, it's because I just can't remember all of these. So breakfast, it might include eggs, Greek yogurt, protein powder if you want, but it's not needed, and I will go into that at the end because lots of people ask good questions on those, on protein powder. Getting some peanut butter in there maybe, and high protein, low fat bacon or turkey bacon. A lot of meat substitutes also have high protein from soy. But I would just go for the whole food, minimally processed, refined, least additives, low salt ones, and maybe it's not a feasible breakfast every day. Cottage cheese, almonds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, smoked salmon if you're bougie, and then also not forgetting about your carbohydrate sources, which do contain protein, like quinoa, buckwheat, oats, a little bit, wholemeal bread. And yeah, there's lots of things you can play around with. So lunch and dinner ideas, so focusing on whole grains for your carbohydrates, like I said, because they're not only going to give you some protein, but they're also going to give you the other benefits, which I mentioned in my last video. And yeah, whole grain versus white will have more protein in it too. So that's your brown breads, brown rice, brown pasta, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, rye, spelt, yeah, those guys. And then for actual protein sources, I'm just going to put the columns up again, but because there's infinite amounts of lunches and dinners you can make, but trying to make it interesting, obviously, maybe it's making it into a Mexican sort of black bean or chicken fajita, or it's a tofu, chickpea, or lentil curry or chicken curry, or maybe whatever they got. Oh yes, stir fries are great for adding like chicken or chickpeas or tofu in, or maybe you're doing a tempeh wrap or chicken Caesar wrap. Yeah, mince or lentil bolognese, nachos. It's limitless. So many options, and protein is so easy to put in. So you're probably already doing it, to be honest. Yeah. Questions. These are really good, and I really enjoyed reading them. And I'm only going to do like sort of 2 answers because I've answered quite a few of them in the main bulk of things already. But the first one's around protein powders. So I'm going to start with, someone asked whether it's any good for your gut. And so protein powder is a supplement. So firstly, I love the concern for the gut because the gut is just so important for everything, like everything. But secondly, consult with your health professional if you are going to start buying and taking a supplement and you are unsure, especially if you have any allergies, intolerances, or have had any like little problematic experiences with protein powder or anything like that. Whey protein powder is the most common, and that comes from dairy, so it will have lactose in it. So people who are lactose intolerant will not fare well with that at all. There is a whey isolate, which may be better because it will have a little bit less lactose in it, but there are lots of vegan plant-based proteins out there too. People who have IBS may also struggle with their gut because there may be added sugars, or there may be sugars in there that they can't tolerate very well. So that's something to be mindful, but actual protein powder generally, for someone without those concerns, then it's okay for your gut. Protein powder in general. So I had questions about pros and cons. Is it worth it? Do I need it? Type thing. What are the benefits? So pros and cons is a good way of answering this. Pros, convenient, tastes good. Protein is the most satiating nutrient, so it keeps you full. And it can help if you're trying to hit a high protein target, or you are vegan, vegetarian, and you are struggling to meet that target too. So it's a nice boost. Roughly a scoop generally has around 20 grams of protein, so that's nice. Pretty easy and pretty helpful. Cons, like I said, if you have any intolerances or allergies, then that might be problematic. Also, it is a supplement. It is not a replacement for meals. When you consume protein powder versus eggs or Greek yogurt or chickpeas or anything like that, you're not getting the other nutrients associated. You're just getting the protein. And so, for example, with chickpeas, you're getting protein, fiber, carbohydrates, as well as like iron, magnesium, potassium, things like that. Whereas protein powder, for the same amount protein, you're not getting as much. So it's not a replacement for food, and you will benefit more from real foods. Not real foods, sorry, just like whole foods. But yeah, so that's that. And some companies add quite a few things in there as well, like additives and sugars and yeah, stuff you don't really need. So check the labels. The one with minimal whole food ingredients is best, I would say, is general advice. But again, I really do advise you go talk to a health professional for this, because me talking to you through a screen is like not personalized at all. And yeah, you can discuss that with them. So second, and like the last thing I'll probably say, is about protein and weight management. So like I said, protein is the most satiating nutrient, so it makes you feel the most full. And this is because the protein and amino acids that arrive in your tummy stimulate your brain to suppress the release of ghrelin. And ghrelin is a hormone that makes you feel hungry. So if we're suppressing that feeling of hunger, yeah, we're not feeling hungry. So that may lead to less snacking or less overall calorie intake, and yeah, which is ultimately to do with your weight. And also if you are building muscle, you're taking protein in. Muscles at rest have like higher energy expenditure the bigger they are. Does that make sense? Yeah, so muscles have an energy expenditure when they're just resting, chilling. If you're growing your muscles, and you are increasing your calorie energy expenditure just at rest, and so that will contribute to your weight as well. Whew. Okay, that's done. I think that was my favorite one so far, and I hope that was helpful. I hope you feel a bit more confident in knowing what protein is, knowing what it does in your body, and know how to get it, how to work out how much you need, whether you do need more than you are currently getting, and also some of the nuances around protein powder and things. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Next one will be on fats next week, and yeah, goodbye.